Elizabeth Warren there pledging to reveal in the coming weeks how exactly she plans to pay for Medicare for all. Her advisors are still crunching the numbers, we're told, amid criticism that it cannot be done without raising taxes on the middle class. So let's bring in our panel on that. Grover Norquist, founder and president of Americans for Tax Freedom, and Juan Williams, Fox News political analyst and co-host of The Five, are here. Thank you to both of you. Good to see you on this Friday morning. Grover, I'll start with you first. $34 trillion. At some point, she's got to answer the question, how do you pay for that?
The entire federal budget's a little more than $4 trillion. So you're going to add 3 to that, 3 each year going forward, $32 trillion over a decade. This is a monumental increase in total taxes. How does Europe do it? They have a VAT, which is a sales tax, which hits the middle class. They have energy taxes, which hits the middle class, which she's already endorsed, the carbon energy tax. And they have higher income taxes on middle income people than we do in the United States. So look at Europe. That's how they do it. If they could get it from 3 rich people in Denmark, they would, but you can't.
All right. So, Juan, I mean, at some point, she's got to explain how she's going to pay for that. She's been asked, as you know, dozens of times on the campaign trail, how do you pay for it? And will you raise taxes on the middle class? Okay. She hasn't answered that question. We're told her team is still trying to figure out how to pay for this, and then they'll release the details of that. Okay. Does she have to?
I think she's got to answer the question. It's not just coming from critics on the right. I think they're critics within the party. You saw them on the stage at the last debate, Sandra, saying, how are you going to pay for it? Bernie's very clear that he's willing to raise, Bernie Sanders, Senator Sanders of Vermont, that he's willing to raise taxes in order to pay for it. So I don't think that that's necessarily somehow going to ruin her campaign with her Democratic base, especially her base, which is very progressive. But she needs to be honest, and I think you're seeing people call her out on it, especially since she has something of a front-runner status, or at least co-equal with with former Vice President Biden. I will say this. If you look at her argument, it's very interesting. It is a tax on the very wealthy that she is predominantly going to use to pay for this. The question is how much of an increase it would mean in taxes for the middle class. She makes the case that overall cost of health care in terms of deductibles and premiums would be reduced. But she's not being honest, I think, in saying there would be no increase for the middle class.
Well, Grover, you dug into it with your piece. And Elizabeth Warren wants to raise taxes for the middle class Americans, not just the rich. In your piece, you don't just talk about her having to raise taxes on the middle class. You talk about her having to impose massive tax increases on our middle class.
Well, she's already told us some things. She said she'll repeal the Trump Republican tax cuts. For the median income family of 4, that's a $2,000 tax increase each year. For a single mother with 1 child, $35,000, it's a $1,300 tax increase every year. That's just, and she spent this money, by the way, many, many times. Every time she talks, it's not just Medicare for all. She's doing all sorts of other spending. And every time she tells you it's the same 3 rich guys are going to pay for it all. In point of fact, she talks about taxing rich people the way magicians do misdirection. They say, oh, look over here. She wants you to think she's taxing rich people. There's not enough money there to do all the things she wants. She's going to go straight to the middle class. This is what Sweden does. This is what Denmark does. This is what the European countries that spend the way she and Bernie Sanders want to. And Sanders admits he'll raise taxes on the middle class, but he hasn't put some numbers on that. When he puts numbers on that,
he called her out on that debate stage and said, "Let's be honest here."
But he hasn't put numbers.
Talking about some of the other candidates, obviously Joe Biden still the front runner when you look at the national polling. He has dropped his opposition to super PAC support. I'll remind everybody with this tweet what he said back in April 2019 on that. He said, "I've said it before. I'll say it again. To speak to the middle class, we need to reject the super PAC system." That's exactly what this campaign is doing. He appears to be changing course on that. Bernie Sanders takes a shot at him for it. Here's Bernie Sanders. Oh, sorry, and it's a full screen quote. The former vice president has been unable to generate grassroots support, and now his campaign is endorsing an effort to buy the primary through a super PAC that can rake in unlimited cash from billionaires and corporations. That's not how we defeat Trump. It's a recipe to maintain a corrupt political system which enriches wealthy donors and leaves the working class behind. So I'll ask the question. Bernie Sanders says he's selling out on this issue. Is he, Juan?
Well, he's certainly changing course. You can characterize it. I mean, Bernie Sanders obviously a rival, and I think that he is, kind of sticking it to him on this in large part because let's look at the actuality behind the rhetoric, Sandra. Right now, Joe Biden has less than a third, about $9 million, a third of what Senator Sanders has on hand to spend in the primary campaign. He has less than half that what Buttigieg and Warren have on-hand money. So he needs money. He is trailing in the money game. And right now he's saying, you know what, I think it's a third of his donors are maxed out. That means they've given $2,800. But with a super PAC, those same people can then give to the super PAC and help his campaign. So I think Joe Biden right now is looking at how he can get a cash infusion for his primary campaign.
Yeah, I mean, back in April when he said that, Grover, he declared he was committed to driving perceived dark money from politics. Things appear to be changing. Grover, last thought from you.
He needs the money. He's having some troubles. But he also has to deal with the fact that he and Obama ran saying they wouldn't tax the middle class for Obamacare. There's 7 taxes that go straight at the middle class that people are paying now for Obamacare. So he wasn't up front with people on the costs of Obamacare, never mind Medicare for all.
Grover Norquist and Juan Williams, appreciate it. Thank you to both of you.
Have a great week.
All right, you too.